Yeah.
Yeah, I'll take the blame on that one.
What a lovely
No, it's not you.
Good morning.
Good morning. We've
Okay.
talked the whole night through.
Good morning.
Good morning to you. Good morning. Good morning. It's great to stay up late. Good morning. Good morning to you.
All right. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the quite late morning roast.
The new roast.
The 12 o'clock roast, apparently. And I am, of course, your host, Mr. Sugar Chris. And with me, of course, is Mr. Sim.
Oh, you don't have to sound so excited. Well, hello, welcome, and good morning, everyone. And hello to chat, and welcome, Paul. How's it going?
Hi there. For those of you who are new to me, my name is Paul Suda. If you've seen me before, it was probably a while ago on Deadliest Warrior and the Full Metal Jousting television shows, and then I and some other geeks made this Game of Thrones fan film 5 years ago called Tower of Joy. We wanted to beat the television show to that Tower of Joy scene, and while the scenery into the Tower of Joy scene in Game of Thrones was certainly impressive, I really like ours. We were we almost slavishly trying to recreate the dialogue and feeling of the scene in the book, the dream sequence in the book. And I was just telling these fellows, I spent even though today I'm here to talk about this comic book I'm trying to make called Manila, I actually spent the entire weekend making another film project with the same group of guys, sword fighting on mountaintops and getting sunburned. So if I seem a little zonk, it's because I spent the weekend humping stuff up hills and down to waterfalls and parks without permits.
And we can blame it on heat strokes. Got it.
Well, I didn't get heat stroke. I drank I drank so much water, I was essentially publicly urinating all day.
Yeah. I was like, oh, hey, this is a cool looking book here. I'm going to reach out and have this fellow on. And then it's like, whoa, this guy has all kinds of stuff going on. Not even just the book. He's over here fighting with swords and mountains.
But I think that's one of the best things from comics. Actually, when you meet like all those creators, we all have different backgrounds, right? And like
Definitely.
movies, video games, any type of stuff, it's all linked to the storytelling.
Well, it seems to be. I was just telling you it seems to be the case, especially if you're not acutely connected to the power brokers in kind of generating scripted content. Whatever you want to be doing, you probably have to go 3 or 4 steps down towards the more primordial or more necessary things to get it to the point where it is something that is producible. And what I mean by that is, and I'll give you my example. I'm sure there's a bunch of different ways. It's like, I would love to be just an actor doing cool stuff, particularly period pieces, swashbuckling adventure things. And I trained I was a medieval times knight, so I've trained in swordsmanship and horsemanship. And I thought to myself, if I have the skills to do these sorts of jobs, of course they'll just fall from the sky. And that's completely not even slightly the case. It's like, I would like to perform. Well, no one's just going to hire me for things that I like, or I'm going to get cast as like gay stripper cop number 4, or like jerk face frat brother boyfriend of the girl the main character is trying to get with, or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like it's fine, but it's absolutely not why I moved to Los Angeles. It's like, I want to be an actor. No one cares. Okay, I'll write stuff that I know that I can do, or that matters to me. And oh crap, quote. I think it's Stephen Pressfield. No one wants to read your shit. Okay. I will produce the thing that I wrote to act in. Okay. That's tricky and very expensive. How could I possibly produce something that could then be packageable? Okay, I'll make a proof of concept trailer, which I did actually. There's a friend of mine who made this role playing game called X-Crawl, which is kind of like, what if D&D was real and it was on television as a spectator sport? That's pretty much what X-Crawl is. It's really cool role-playing game. It's like, okay, that. Okay, still, like, getting through the noise of even showing a proof of concept and being able to pitch something is so tricky. Okay, what's like something that's actually finished that could be taken to market independently that would also be a thing to sell for. Okay, so I had this project called Manila. I was talking to my friend Jack Yang. Jack Yang's an actor. He was on, I would say, most recently, Shadowhunters. He played Asmodeus on Shadowhunters. He was I think the king of hell. he has some very serious fans. But he was a good friend of mine. We were roommates for a minute, actually, as well. And I was just sort of chatting with him. I was asking him actually kind of about the phenomenon of particularly Asian actors and filmmakers. And it has shifted. This was back in 2017 that I was talking to him about this. And the landscape has shifted a bit, and the rhetoric around it. I mean, obviously, this past year there was a lot of very the news about how to describe it. Random disturbing physical attacks on Asian Americans or kind of Asian folks in North America in the West after the kind of and sort of connected maybe to the plague, but this is before that. But even then, I think Crazy Rich Asians had just come out at that point, and I was asking kind of Jack about a lot of this stuff, and he's from Taiwan. Well, he was born in Canada, but his folks fled Taiwan. Mm-hmm. During one of the larger tense moments, kind of during the Cold War, in which it was every once in a while China threatens to invade Taiwan, and I think at that moment it was one of those like, maybe they will really do it. And basically they fled from Taiwan to Canada to avoid possibly having the situation of Jack's dad flying fighter planes against the Chinese when they invaded.
Yeah.
But anyway, I was talking to Jack about because Crazy Rich Asians was a successful movie, and there was kind of there was like noise about like stuff that has more of this, with its a larger footprint of Asian performers in the main cast, and of course more folks behind the camera, and all roles, like more of this representation. And Jack is a huge Renaissance fair period piece, also swashbuckler kind of enthusiastic dude. His house is full of weapons and costume pieces, and he's super fascinated with a lot of that period piece stuff. And I was like, man, like what if it was like a pirate heist, but it took place sort of in the age of piracy, age of trade in the East Indies, because the idea would be to take the concept of sort of the gang of scallywags from different places, but have it just specifically be, just a bunch of different Asian scallywags from different particular places. And I said to him, what if they were stealing the Manila Galleon? He's like, what's the Manila Galleon? And I was like, oh man, you don't know what that is? It's really simple. Or it's like the sweetest, most awesome treasure ship people haven't heard of. And the simple, between, I would say, the 1570s and a little bit after, I think it was 1815 when it ended, when the Spanish Empire broke up, or when, I think it was when Mexico rebelled and broke off from Spain. So in this period, the Spanish had a bunch of silver that was coming out of what's now, I think it's Bolivia, but it was Peru at the time. There was all this silver coming out of Central South America. And the original reason why the Spanish sent Columbus west was because they wanted to do an end run around the whole way to get to China. And of course, but so they still wanted to get to China and trade with China. So the cute way that they kind of continued that objective, and in a weird way also sort of avoided a lot of inflation from all this extra silver coming into the market, was twice a year they would send one huge, heavily armed Spanish galleon from Acapulco to Manila. And so when it was going west, when it was the Acapulco galleon, it was just chock full of silver. I mean, a lot of things, but silver was the main thing. Like they used silver as ballast for the ship. There was so much silver on this damn thing. So they sent, so it was going west, it was full of silver. And then it gets to Manila and they unload the thing, and then they just spend a bunch of silver with, trading originally with the Ming Dynasty Chinese for all the stuff you want out of the East: silks, fine furniture, specialty hardwoods, pearls, spices. It's like all the really good stuff from East Asia. And so then if the Manila galleon was going east back to Acapulco, then it was full of all that stuff. So if a pirate hit this thing, or if a rival nation hit this thing and managed to take it, it was like set for life, like instant. And I don't know if they called this the Manila galleon, but I think Francis Drake hit one of those treasure ships, and that's why he was able to basically bribe his way out of being in deep trouble with Elizabeth Elizabeth I. They pissed off the Spanish tremendously because Elizabeth didn't punish him. She was like, "Oh, I have to make you a knight because you just went around the entire world and threw a bunch of money at the crown. Okay, I guess you're cool. I'm not going to throw you in.
We're all right with you now."
So I originally wrote a screenplay, and Jack was kind of getting some interest. He's connected to a number of pretty no joke performers, and particularly Asian performers in Hollywood. And I'm not going to blame actors for this. That this is just the way it is. They're like, that's super cool, but it's like that's the end of the conversation. It doesn't really go much farther than, oh, that's so cool, that's so neat, I would love to be involved. Mm-hmm. So I was like, okay, I'm not gonna be patient about this anymore. And then I also got to push a pal of mine, a classmate from Emerson College, is a literary agent in New York, and he recommended, hey, if you want to make a comic of this thing, that would be pretty cool. You could release it in installments, and then once you have enough, you could collect it together in a graphic novel, and that's pretty easy for us to bring to the kind of power brokers in Hollywood. And then again, if you're just releasing it, self-publishing it on your own, then that'll generate its own interest in its own audience. So and then I partnered with my artist partner's name is Eugene Park. So what you're seeing, the original art is Eugene Park's work, and he's I found him because he makes a webcomic called Red Roger. And Red Roger's aesthetic reminded me a lot of the Monkey Island games. So, and Monkey Island is my favorite pirate anything. I think I played that game when I was 7 or 8 years old, and it was the first computer game that had the art, of course, was neat. But I think the thing that really sucked me in was when I first played it. It was my grandfather actually. He had a pretty sweet computer setup for the time, and it had a CD-ROM drive, and it had the kind of the CD quality sound. So the soundtrack, the music, and also the kind of really like almost movies like quality sound was what really sucked me into the game. And it was so Monkey Island is a big part of my sort of conception of like what sort of cool piratey, like the fun swashbuckling with humor and with some weird anachronistic things. Yeah. And so I reached out to Eugene, and Eugene also loves a lot of old pirate stuff, and we bonded over that. And he really quickly, and his issue one work, his art is finished. So and it's wonderful. And the amazing thing about the experience of especially I had to adapt my movie script into a comic scripts, like here, panel this, panel that. So that was kind of clunky, and I'm probably not as good at it as I'd prefer to be. But seeing someone who's more experienced at this take what I wrote, and then he's really, his character interactions and the expressions of the characters are very specific and very interesting and fun and very dense. And sort of when I'm looking at his art, it's almost like there's even more characterization happening than I really conceived of when I wrote the thing. It's like, well, yes, I'm so good at writing. It's like, no. He's sort of he's reading into the characters, and he's figuring out who they are even more so than I had, and that's really cool.
Yeah, when I first seen this and all, the art was what, I mean, obviously the story grabbed my attention because I love history. So, that grabbed me, but also the art. The art was, it reminded me of, like you said, like a more cartoon animated sort of thing. Because I had also played, Return to Monkey Island back in the day. And yeah, it gave me that feel as well of like a kind of like animated look about it. But I've never heard of Red Roger. I'll have to look
To me,
and
the
see
art.
what that was about.
To me, the art style reminds me a lot of more of the French comic, like Asterix and Obelix and Lucky Luke, like those type of like more French, like Franco-Belgian type of comics. Like it.
My literary agent said a lot of Eugene's stuff reminded him of like earlier Will Eisner. But you can
Reminds me
again, I
of-
think
Reminds me of
his,
Loisel. I don't know if you ever heard about that guy, Loisel. He's a French guy, and he did the Peter Pan that inspired the Captain Hook. He was the one that
really?
did the mature story of an older Peter Pan.
Oh, really? Oh, the movie you mean that one?
Yeah, that's the comic that inspired the movie with Hook. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know.
Yeah.
I'd say what you particularly the pirate stuff that Eugene and like a lot of his sort of just like art he just throws up onto his Instagram, and his Instagram is at Eugene Y Park. I could even type it in the comic at Eugene Y Park, so it looks like Eugenie Park. But he likes sort of leaning into the characters simultaneously having very decorative kind of personal dress styles, but also a bit of grotesque and dirtiness to them too, which I think is sort of that might be a stereotype of the Golden Age pirates, but it's an interesting one. It's like I mean, in the same way that sort of I'd say the height of the Mongol Empire, there was the stereotype of like the Mongol warriors were wearing all this really cool armor and like beautiful silks and stuff, but like they also were like super dirty and gross.
Yeah,
it's like the same idea. It's like you have these sort of very rough, very austere people, but like because they're so mean and aggressive, they've managed to like acquire all this really nice stuff from the people they've killed, or scared into just giving them stuff to have them not hurt them. It's like,
yeah.
So I have not checked the chat pretty much since we started, so they're all probably.
I checked it a bit.
Well, I'm
and
glad
as you
you're
can
keeping
see,
up.
they feel left out in the chat, so you better catch up.
Yeah, I need
and
to.
don't forget to say hi to Dunkel Cypher.
Oh, Dunkel Ziffer?
Uncle Cypher, yeah.
No, I'm calling him Dunkel Ziffer. I like that.
Yeah, that's your accent. That
I'm West Virginian. I don't understand these foreign languages.
Dude,
all right?
Hey, dude, you have to let me get those in, okay? You guys keep making fun of my Canadian accent, so hey.
I'm gonna skip all this talk in the chat of me being late. There's a lot of mutiny talk in the chat. I'm gonna skip all that. Go down. There's
they're coming for you.
the chat host Soion. He says, "Ahoy, me hearties! Today's morning roast will be all about that pirate life. Yo ho! Get ready for ships, rifles, rapiers, and treasure." Arr. Good morning, Kristen, Paul, chat.
Good morning, Soul, the co-host, the chat co-host.
Let's see.
So Manila right now is on mailing list.
Goblin in someone's basement. But you said this book was pretty well done, like in art.
The objective of our crowdfunder is essentially to buy ourselves some time to get issue 1 finished and be on our way to getting issue 2. So essentially, we're kind of priming the pump of self-publishing, and then once we've self-published and we're kind of up and running, then the self-publishing can be sort of self-funding at the same time. But Eugene, and the whole kind of the story that was encompassed by my original screenplay, like volume 1 of our comics, and we'll probably do 3 whole volumes, so like 3 films worth or 3 seasons worth of stuff. But but there's going to be 6 issues that is volume 1, and Eugene's art is already finished for issue 1. It's done. There's going to be we're going to probably go in and like get a little granular about where the text boxes are placed, but in terms of all the like art is penciled, inked, and colored, and looks awesome. And so I would say in the first issue you meet not all of the characters, but a good chunk of the main characters. There's a sailboat race on Manila Bay, and then which is the end of which is interrupted by a Dutch warship attacking the fort. So you're kind of getting an introduction to like, what is this world, what's happening here, and what could happen here. And the reason why I'm so kind of excited, and like I kind of couldn't wait to take the setting, because the whole thing for me is an excuse to just sort of share this crazy real life setting. I mean, we're taking lots of liberties for our artistic license, because it to my knowledge, no one like just sort of stole a Manila galleon. Like some of them sank and some of them were taken by pirates, and there were 2 different English naval commanders that competently took them. Yeah. But so this, as far as I know, then nothing like this story actually happened. But I'm trying to have it take place around 1650, and I'm sort of smushing a number of real life historical events together, because there was a bunch of cool things that happened, but they happened sort of a year or 5 or 8 apart. Yeah. And there was a few other things that I'm just not gonna bother with. Like I think it's something you got to know about Manila is every once in a while a giant earthquake just levels the place, and I was like, there's already enough crazy stuff happening. Let's like not have the earthquake level the place in this story. Okay. But the setting is so interesting because in the mid 1600s, the Spanish had Manila, and they had some other kind of no joke outposts in the Philippines, but they never, even up until the end of their occupation, and even during the American occupation, even now the Philippines is its own independent country, there's sections of the Philippine Islands that are in a state of insurgency. Like there's Muslim Moro rebels just sort of doing their thing, and you can't corral them. You can't it's just it's too expensive or too time consuming or whatever to completely get every inch of this. I don't know if it's like 7,000 islands chain. Like there's tons of islands in the Philippines. But the Spanish had like one specific kind of enclave that they had control of, and particularly Manila. It's a good port, and it had been a trading hub for a long time before the Spanish showed up. And it was kind of a cute way, even before Japan closed itself off. The Philippines was a cute way for a bunch of people to do business with China, and sort of avoid having to do all the annoying maneuvers they'd have to do to actually officially do business with China. And the reason the Spanish the reason that the Spanish had their base in Manila and didn't have a base to trade with China in, say, Macau or somewhere closer on the mainland was because the Chinese wouldn't let them, and the Portuguese wouldn't let them either. So
the Philippines.
Yeah. So and at the same time, the period where this is taking place is around the time where the Dutch were about as powerful as they were going to get. And so they were very rich, very powerful. They had a monopoly on definitely nutmeg and maybe a few other spices. They were in the process. They had New York. They basically I grew up in Albany, near Albany, New York. And the Dutch at this time period had not yet lost New York to the English. And the reason the English took New York from them was because they were still fighting about the Dutch and English competing for spice trade in the East Indies. And I think part of the reason the English sort of ended up ascendant was the English were a lot more reasonable and more willing to make kind of, at the time, seemingly innocuous, seemingly harmless deals with local folks. Whereas at the time, the Dutch were just like, we will put a fort on this island and violently subjugate everyone on it. Next island, fort, violent subjugation. And like, they were really mean, it's kind of odd. Like, nowadays, Dutch and Belgians have a very mild-mannered reputation. And I'd say that's really deserved on the continent. But the Dutch and the Belgians have ferocious colonial reputations, which is very interesting to me.
And they were known to protect their route very draconically. Like they just say, they had their specific route. That's what the thing from the Manila is, that they had their route that nobody knew about, that was pretty quick, and everybody that was trying to get close, well, they were getting sunk.
Well, the East India Company was, I think, the first modern joint stock company. And during something people know, like kind of randomly about the Dutch and about the East India Company is the tulip craze. And I think it was the 1630s. There was this crazy speculation into tulips, and people went nuts. And it was like a very, very fast but very dramatic bubble and bubble burst. People lost their houses, lost their tails because the tulips were so whatever. And I think some like sneaky, Dutch or German guy basically made off with, he was working for the Ottomans, and he basically like stole some tulip bulbs and planted them in the Netherlands, and like that just sort of took off. But during the height of the tulip speculation, the Dutch East India Company, because they were helping transport these things, and at the same time they had their nutmeg monopoly. At their height, the Dutch East India Company was worth an amount of money equal to, I think, like $8.3 trillion in today's money. It's probably historically the richest corporation in history. But this corporation, people make jokes nowadays about international corporations being essentially their own nation states. Back then, these East India companies, they could make like military conquest policy. Like they had their own navies, they had their own armies, and they had their own deals with, local leaders in the East Indies, or kind of everywhere from Africa through South Asia, through East Asia. They would just they'd say, yeah, we're like totally representing the crown. Yeah, just trust us. Like, you'll never meet our king or queen. So just like, it's fine.
Yeah, they were like a country within a country, pretty much.
Well, and in the same way corporations do now, they could kind of pretend that they were or weren't a country. Like it's just like what we are depends on what the conversation is. And whenever there's something to be gained, yes. Whenever there's something to be lost, oh no, we're not responsible. That kind of crap.
Yeah.
I don't know if you mentioned it, but one of the fascinating thing about the Manila, that thing sailed the freaking seas for 250 freaking years.
Let's see.
That's a long time for a ship to stay active.
Well, I mean, it wasn't just one. Like they kept building more ships, and I think every ship I think their plan was for each ship to last like 12 years, and most of them didn't even last 6. And that wasn't just. I mean, lots of them sank because, particularly the straits around the Philippines were really tricky. Lots of reefs, lots of waters that were fairly shallow for large ships to navigate. So I don't know if it wasn't. I'm sure it wasn't half of them, but it was like between 150 and 200 ships that just like gone. And obviously, modern treasure hunters are super stoked about happening upon one of those ships, because particularly if they get one of the Acapulco galleons, like if the ship was like, it got all the way across the Pacific and it was like within 100 miles of the Philippines and then it sank, well, it's full of silver. That's pretty straightforward. Like if it's the Manila galleon and it has like, pearls and silks, like a lot of the stuff from a lot of the stuff from the East. Well, yeah, I think the porcelain would probably still be pretty rich stuff nowadays. But like a lot of the stuff from the East is probably more perishable.
Yeah, more
as opposed to like
or something.
Yeah, as opposed to like, oh, this ship is a bunch of silver and gold. If we find it, we just get the silver and gold. Great, very simple to figure out how much that's worth.
So we have Mr. Bristolian Dave in the chat. He says, "All right, me babbers." Hey, Dave. And then we've got Jay Cage had said earlier. He said, "Gay stripper cop sounds like a great idea for a book."
I will not be writing it.
Don't forget number 4. It just sounds funnier.
Soul said, Tommy says you said it correctly. It's not cipher, Sim.
I didn't say cipher. I said Zypher, like with a Z.
Well, you were
It was
wrong.
the funny part of it.
I was right. So just
no. They're just trying to pamper you, dude. Make you feel better about your mispronunciation. How'd you say M-A again?
Shut up, Sim. She's not here.
Oh, maybe if you say her name, she'll show up.
Soul has put your Instagram link down there.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yep, followed it.
Soul is.
Well, also our let me comment as well. Our at Manila Comic is where we are on Instagram and on Facebook at Manila Comic. It's all one word.
All right. Let's see.
And primarily what we're doing on both of those platforms is just, we are sharing original art, but also just like sharing as much just sort of piratey East Indies themed stuff as we can. And in terms of the contemporaneous stuff, there actually is a lot of really cool, really naturalistic watercolors, sketches, woodcuts, and oil paintings from this time. Most of the really good ones are Dutch. And, that's sort of good news, bad news. Like the Dutch were producing exceptional artists. They also were doing a bunch of messed up stuff in the East Indies. It's the way it is. That's just the way it is. Trying to find, there's a lot of really cool naturalistic artwork that's in like the later colonial period, kind of like when the British East India Company became really ascendant in the East Indies and in China and India. And again, like once the Canton system in China, so to Qing Dynasty, like later stuff, there's a lot of artwork. But again, that's after our time period. So I kind of do my best to keep it sort of within the age of piracy, age of trade. If we're getting into the 1800s, it's getting a little past what we're going for. Yeah. But also sharing a bunch of like video clips from swashbuckling movies, cool sword fights. It's like mostly I'm just kind of shoveling a bunch of cool stuff that got me interested in this whole thing in the first place. Like I think the reason I like pirate stuff is because I watched Errol Flynn movies when I was 6. So Robin Hood, the Seahawk, Captain Blood, Charge of the Light Brigade. I kind of got into Errol Flynn movies when I was pretty dang young.
Yeah. Every time you just keep bringing a pirate movie, that's what I think of, Errol Flynn.
Yeah, my mom got me initiated with that stuff with Pirate of My Dreams. I don't know if you remember that one. Is that the English title of it? Where it's a girl that goes visiting on like a pirate ship, and she falls into a fantasy thing where she's living a pirate adventure.
That sounds like a version of Outlander, but I don't know what that particular thing is.
Let me
I don't know if there's an English version of it.
It is an American movie though, so let me check.
Yeah, I'm curious. I'm not familiar with this.
Yeah, I don't know.
It sounds a lot like the same conceit of the Outlander books and shows, is like a modern lady transported to the past, and she's, of course, there's some hunky dangerous dude she's going to get with, like obviously. You
were saying that you're hoping to utilize this crowdfunding, that way you could make basically you could use the graphic novel to kind of pitch as a pitch thing.
Yes, because I think that it's not really a coincidence that it's become a very rote sort of step in the industrial scripted movie TV stuff pipeline of that they're trying to turn as many successful-ish comics into television shows and movies as they can, as fast as they can. Because again, folks aren't the folks who are in the process are considerably less inclined to read a long piece of text as they are to look at stuff that's closer to what they'll actually be doing in the movies. And because comics are essentially storyboards,
There you go.
reading a storyboard. And so that you skipped, I don't know, at least 3 steps, if not like 10 steps in the process, from like the story to what you'd be looking at that the movie might look like. And not every comic book movie is a super direct translation of a comic book into storyboard form, but some of them are like eerily slavishly doing that. Like I would say, I mean, Zack Snyder's original works, and even now, like 300 and Watchmen had a lot of extremely literal translations from the comics to the tableau that was moving on the screen.
Now, Paul, I'm going to warn you, if you go start bashing Zack Snyder's Justice League or anything like that, Sim might get upset.
Beware. No, but
No,
okay, I found it.
I'm
I
not
found the
bashing it. I'm
English
just
version
saying like I'm just saying like it's to kind of say that comics are storyboards using Sin City and 300 and Watchmen are very easy examples. Because it's very literal. It's like this is the picture that you saw from the comic. There it is moving on the screen, and not every comic movie or comic TV show does that in a way that you could like literally look from one to the other and it's the same thing. But those examples are very easy to do that. Oh, the pirate movie, yeah, I have that movie.
That was the movie I was telling you about.
It has some ups and downs. Like there's a lot of funny stuff in that. There's also some really cringy stuff, like the ridiculous 80s style music videos that sort of pause the movie.
Yeah. But that's the thing, is that the entire premise is that she's in her dreams. So, out of nowhere, people would just start dancing. And you're like, what? And then when you realize that she's just dreaming. But that was the movie. Like, it's weird because the title in French was the Pirate of My Dream. And I found out that the movie is just a pirate movie.
The kid's from the Blue Lagoon. I would say that's his claim to fame. The kind of the male romantic lead. The funny thing about the movie is, I would say, like, if you show this movie to a lot of modern ladies, they'd be like, okay, this is cringy, number one. But number two, the villain is like the yoked out in shape dude in that movie. The villain seems to be a bit more fetching than the hero. The hero is very Guybrush Threepwood like, very very kind of like wet behind the ears, young, scrappy kid. But yeah, that's a fun. I have that one on DVD. I'm sorry to say.
But that's the thing. That was the movie that my mom initiated me to the pirate, stuff, and then it went from there and swashbucklers and stuff.
Red's here. He says, "What up, Sugar Tarna?" Oh gosh, don't bring that up, Red. We don't need to talk about that. I don't need to talk about Pale Rider shenanigans.
Yeah, that definitely needs to be a mug when it's done. That's all I'm saying.
No, it doesn't need to be anything. It doesn't need to exist.
What? Dude, yes it does. Tarna is iconic, and, Pale Rider's drawing you as it. Yeah.
I don't want to be drawn as a woman in skimpy outfits riding dragons.
It's not a dragon. It's a pterodactyl type alien beast.
It doesn't matter, Sam.
It was designed by Mobius. Show some goddamn respect. No, come on.
No. Respect to nothing.
Oh, wow. It's not finished yet.
Yeah.
So when are you planning on, Paul? When are you planning on launching this?
Oh, we're launching the crowdfunder tomorrow afternoon. So this is kind of good timing, to be honest. And I'll reach out. I'll poke both of you once we're live. It'll likely be between 5 and 6 p.m. Eastern time. Just by virtue of I work very late at night, so I won't really be awake tomorrow until noon. But I have to make a few tweaks to the to our campaign video. Actually, you know what? Real quick, I can even share. I did I'll share one video that's just the first minute of our campaign video is also essentially like a little like moving picture version of the first 2 pages of our comic. And it's as close as I could make it. Oops, 1 second. Let me share that. I'll share the link with you right now. But it essentially tells more efficiently than I could what the premise of the Manila Galleon is, and kind of takes you from showing the big ship kind of coming at you, and it goes to the city of Manila, like a really cool overhead view of the city of Manila. There's the link. And then, there's a kind of a pitching thing, but we'll launch tomorrow. And yeah, again, we're really, it's about buying ourselves enough time, specifically buying Eugene's time with the art. I'm basically, it's his advance essentially. I'm willing to kind of hang back on my compensation until Eugene is compensated for his time with the art. And then, and then like once, when he's got his advance, and then once we're doing the self-publishing, then I'll kind of get mine, and then we'll go halvesies. And and Jack Yang does the voiceover for the narration for this sort of moving little like read the comic of the first 2 pages, little animatic. And that one, I don't tend to. It's funny when I write the screenplays and even the comics, I don't tend to think about exactly how the visuals will go, or I'm kind of open to wiggle room. But the very, very beginning with essentially you see the Manila Galleon sailing towards you, and then it's kind of sailing away from you, and then it goes up to the sun, and then it sort of comes down as if it's sort of teleported to Manila itself. I had a very clear idea of how I wanted that all to look. So that's our trailer there. We'll show exactly how it looks. We're launching tomorrow. We'll go 30 days, and it's pretty modest goal. But I'm a little nervous about it. But I've done this before. Again, I crowdfunded for Tower of Joy, and I crowdfunded for the X-Crawl trailer as well. Okay. And that went okay. You got some
experience with the whole crowdfunding market a little there.
Well, you have to ask lots of people and be simultaneously polite and shameless. It's like, I'm doing this thing. It's really important to me. I will deliver on this thing. I think it's gonna be cool. I think you're gonna like it. Will you donate to this project? Yes. Thank you so much. No. Cool. No worries. Next person. Will you? And see, so it's like you have to be polite. But you also have to be willing to just ask, like, hey, will you give me and these other people money for this thing? And, that can be an uncomfortable ask because, some people are not comfortable being asked for money. That's fine. It makes sense. I admit there's times people ask me and I'm like, I've said no myself and it didn't feel great. But that's just the way it goes. You don't get if you don't ask.
True.
And now
again, you lose when you ask, except like getting a no.
Do you have a place where you're launching at, like a launch party? Usually, people when they
do channel or something,
they'll do like a launch party or something for like when they launch it. They're streaming it, and everything, and they'll get their audience together and stuff.
I'm not doing that tomorrow, but I definitely am going to be doing some. I'm going to be doing some Zooms with Eugene and also with Jack Yang. I'm actually getting together with Jack Yang, just getting together. My wife and I and him and his lady, we're going to get together next weekend. Particularly what I want to shoot is I got this liquor that's very popular in the Philippines because it's originally Filipino, but is not super widely distributed outside the Philippines. It's called Lambanog, and Jack hasn't tried Lambanog yet, so we're going to have some of that. And here's a cool story. And I'm actually kind of surprised that Lambanog is not a bigger deal in the wider world because it's actually pretty good. I would say it tastes like vodka with a tiny bit of a sweet finish. And I'm sure the more local stuff, the more homemade stuff has a lot of variations. I got a very kind of large label because how am I going to order it in the West? I got to figure it out. But here, there's a cool story behind Lambanog. So, I mean, distilled spirits is a certain amount old, and the East Asia and South Asia had distilled spirits, probably maybe even before the West did. But the Filipinos had their sort of local lowish alcohol, but good enough to get you drink, and I think they called it tuba. They fermented coconut and palm tree saps, and so this stuff was, alcoholic like beer or like wine is alcoholic. And they had this stuff and it was fine. When the Spaniards showed up, they brought their distilling equipment that I think they used to make things like fortified wines like Madeira, I think is what they could call it, in the place, or Madeira, I think we call it in the West, or brandies, that kind of stuff. And rum, I think rum was appearing in the Caribbean around the time that we're doing our comic. But anyway, the Spanish brought their distilling equipment to the Philippines, and the Filipinos were like, "Ooh, we could probably do that we could take this tuba stuff and distill it." And what they made was Lambanog. So they get the sap from these coconut and palm trees, they ferment it, and they distill it into Lambanog. The Manila galleons, these ships going between the Philippines and New Spain, which is now Mexico, had increasing numbers of Filipino sailors working on them. In Mexico, the Filipino sailors were, meeting the mestizo Mexicans and saying, "Hey, there's a few palm trees here. Like, we'll show you how to make this Lambanog stuff. It's pretty good, right? Right? Yeah, okay." So, but the thing is, to harvest the sap from these palm and coconut trees, essentially you have to climb up to where the coconuts, the top of the tree is where the sap is coming out. Mm-hmm. And you can see now, even nowadays, you can see videos of folks harvesting this stuff, and they kind of string a bunch of when you see like hippie kids in the park doing tightrope crap, they have those sort of flat bands that they string between trees. Mm-hmm. Well, imagine one of those that kind of goes along like 3 or 4 different trees, and some super athletic dude is just like running like an Ewok between trees, harvesting, tapping things, and he's 50 feet off the ground or whatever. It's super dangerous.
Yeah.
So the Filipinos bring their Lambanog and their equipment, what they've sort of adapted for the equipment to Mexico, and the Mexicans were like, "This is a very good idea. We're not really a big fan of like running around like Ewoks on palm trees, but we do have this thing on the ground called the blue agave. So we have tequila, and tequila is super popular now and kind of everywhere. And the particular way that it was made was because the mestizo Mexicans adapted the Filipino sailors. It was like Spanish equipment, Filipino equipment, Mexican equipment. It was that weird, intercultural exchange is why tequila is what it is now. So I thought that was super interesting. I didn't know about that until actually pretty recently. I think I'd even finished writing the script, and I was like, wait, what's stuff called Lambanog? It's cool. Let's do that. Let's have some.
Yeah, so I'm going to play the trailer.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
My name is Yang, and this is my ship, the Manila Galleon. Let me tell you about the Manila Galleon since you're new here. Pirates dream of taking this ship every night until they die. She's the biggest, toughest, richest ship afloat. The Spanish had the galleon built. See, they went looking for China and found the Americas instead. They called the American natives Indians, enslaved them, and stole their silver. Mountains of silver. Lucky for the Spanish, the Ming Chinese needed mountains of silver to back up the worthless paper currency. So, twice a year, the Spanish pack all the silver they can into one ship. and send her from Acapulco, New Spain, across 15,000 miles of ocean to their colony here in Manila.
Oh, nicely done.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, I like that. Let's see. I haven't checked the chat in a while. Let's see. Red's fussing at me about being more appreciative of my fan art. No, Red. I'm not going to be appreciative of what Pale Rider does. If he was here, though, all this pirate talk gave me an idea, but he's not. I don't see him in the chat, so I won't go over it. I'll keep that a secret. Let's see. What else are they saying here? Oh, Katie's here. She says, "Hey, peeps. Hey, Chris, baby, yo, Sim. Hi, Paul. Chris, you look so chic in those Tarna thongs." Gosh dang it. Is that what you were shopping the other day? I was. So, Paul, to let you in on this, there is a gentleman who's always in the chat named Pale Rider, and on Twitter, he is drawing me as the woman from Heavy Metal.
Oh, jeez.
And it all started because Chris told a story of a long time ago that, as a challenge, he went to work with a red dress. It was a funny thing that he did, and it stuck. And it stuck. Get it?
So everybody took a life of its own, and it's out of my hands now.
So that's the red dress thing.
That's what you get for being honest.
And and sometimes some people just can't let go.
No.
Can you see
when it's funny, right?
In the chat. Yeah, yes. You all aren't going to embarrass me in front of our new guest. Katie wants to know, it says, "Yo, Paul, let's skip to juicy parts. Any AAT in your comic?" That is ass titty.
Blood, action, strong man ready to save a lady in need.
Good questions. I'd say we went pretty tame with what we were up to. I think particularly because of the possibilities of getting an actual legacy publishing deal, as a YA comic. So we weren't we didn't go so tame as to not have anybody get shanked. There's some folks getting killed off. There's stuff blowing up, but we were pretty. And this isn't just me being restrained or a prude or something. What I kind of like about a lot of especially the old swashbuckling things is there's a lot of action, but it's not but people are getting sliced in half or blown to bits. It's kind of stylized and kind of tame. And I like it's same thing, the Monkey Island games. No one's getting horribly mangled. Again, there are zombie pirates, but it's not you don't have the moment of guy gets killed off and then comes to life as a zombie pirate and starts ripping off limbs. We're pretty I would say PG to PG-13 in terms of what we're showing and what our art is depicting. But there's some folks getting killed off, and at least at this stage, we're not doing any AAT stuff. Again, pretty tame, pretty not, I wouldn't say young kid friendly, but younger teenager friendly. Parents of younger teenager friendly. I'd say that because I would say there's some yucky relationships and yucky kind of intercultural relationships with the East Indies at the time we're doing. And I'm not shying away from sort of how ruthless both the European colonial powers are, but also, there's going to be East Asian, Malaysian, Chinese pirates that are going to, be ruthless in their way. Everyone's pretty ruthless. It was a crazy, crazy place and a crazy, crazy time. I can't believe the Spanish held on to the Philippines as long as they did. I really can't believe it because it's just snakes eating snakes nonstop in that part of the world. And the Europeans were very ruthless, very violent, and had some pretty yucky technology at their disposal. But they got their butts kicked by the Asians plenty of times too. The Japanese threw everybody out of Japan and let the Dutch kind of have a tiny little artificial island because they felt like it. But it took until the 1850s for the Europeans to be able to like legitimately push around the East Asians. So everybody had to kind of figure it out until that time. But good question. Good question. There's and I would say the romantic stuff is more on the level of the will they won't they kind of thing. Again, sort of. And I didn't really plan this in the first place, but it sort of leans into a bit of the sort of young adult sort of genre. You know, there's some stuff, but it's kind of cute and innocent in the grand scheme of things. And there's a few characters that have history with each other, so a bit of steaminess, but it's still, again, it's very tame in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, you want to keep
that's a good question.
You want to keep it more like the like classic, like kind of adventure movies type of thing.
It's funny. It's not like I have a problem watching TV or movies that is very adult and very kind of raunchy in that way. I mean, I really liked Black Sails, or I liked a lot of Black Sails, and that was pretty pulpy, pretty what's the word for it? Yeah, there was some smutty stuff. You know, and I think Michael Bay was one of the EPs, so like you got to have hot chicks for no reason and like modern makeup. But so I get it, but I would say my default sort of sentiment with this sort of material is 30s, 40s golden age of Hollywood swashbuckling stuff, because I would like for 6-year-old kids to be able to watch this stuff, and maybe they won't understand a lot of it, and maybe some of it's going to be a little much, but I don't want them to be like disqualified from it because of that stuff. You know, same way I like playing Monkey Island and watching the Errol Flynn movies or Princess Bride. You know, it would be good for someone, for a kid as young as I was, to be able to be like to have the same sort of experience I did with the Errol Flynn movies, but if they had it with this, that'd be cool. You know?
Yeah. Hey, we got Mr. De Bruin with us. He says, "Is this history with Paul Suda?" Yeah, that's apparently what's turned into.
What's turned into.
It shows he knows what he's writing about.
Yeah, that means he definitely has the knowledge
Mm-hmm.
for the book he's doing.
One I found also, like the more I try to find out, the more I realize how ignorant I am, and also it's not super easy to find really detailed books and really informed scholars about this. And I think part of the reason is the later history centered around the Philippines is really interesting and has a lot more records attached to it, and also is more arguably relevant to today's world. You know, like the end of the Spanish occupation, and then the American occupation and possession of the Philippines, and then the history since then. All of that is, especially because of World War II, that's all really, really written about and really covered and really relevant, and more obviously so. I think it's trickier to kind of dig below those layers of things to, again, the sort of beginning and height of the Spanish occupation and what happened then. I think there's fewer records, and there's less art. Obviously, there's a lot of art, but there's less than I would prefer. But it kind of digging under what people think of now as what the deal is with the Philippines.
Okay, now, Mr. De Bruin says, also the reason the Dutch were given a trade treaty is because we took the time to learn their customs, where most other countries trying to do the same didn't. Let's see. No, Katie.
I think I would imagine that depended on where. I think the Dutch were. I mean, I think all the European powers, when they could just come in and smush stuff, they did. And when they couldn't, they were pretty dang reasonable. You know, it was like test. What do I have to do to get the thing I want, which is nutmeg?
Yeah, which
is
type of the saying, if you can't beat them.
Well, and I think that, again, like I said, again, from what I've read, it seems like the reason the English were able to surpass the Dutch was because the English were willing to be more privatized, more peaceful, more kind of jujitsu with local politics for longer. Like, ultimately, all of these companies collapsed because their expenses outweighed their profits. You know, and the more you have to repress people, and we're seeing this today with U.S. foreign policy. Like the more violent you have to, the more violent you have to impose your will to keep your trade stuff stable, the more suddenly your bottom line gets chipped away by it. And once it flips, you just collapse. And the Dutch collapsed because they were doing too much violent stuff for too much money, and by shipping all this stuff west, suddenly it was not as expensive as it was to begin with, and the margins at some point flipped. But the Dutch were no joke. They had a pretty good handle on stuff for a minute. They knew what they were doing.
Oh, Sim, did I tell you I went to the flea market yesterday?
I saw that post of yours. You didn't tell me, but I saw the post you said, and you
Yeah,
said there was something that I might want, and I'm still curious to know what the hell it was.
Yeah, hold on, let me get the box.
And people in the chat, if you just joined in case you missed in, obviously Paul knows what the hell he's talking about, and it's I think the proof is there, and he's launching tomorrow. So if anything of this interest in you has piqued your interest, be ready tomorrow. It'll be live between 5 or 6 p.m. Eastern, you said, Paul?
Yeah, and I'll reach out to you both personally when we're live,
Mm-hmm.
so that way you can spread the word. And thank you so much for helping me spread the word, guys. And thanks for inviting me. I'm glad that I'm here. This is cool.
Yeah, but
really
and if
fun.
you don't have a stream to promote the launch or something, you can reach out to Chris. I'm sure that's I'm sure that's where he was going to. He was probably gonna offer you maybe tomorrow night or something.
Yeah, because we do tomorrow. We do an evening roast, so it'd be 8 p.m. or something like that Eastern, where we would do a stream anyway. So if you wanted to do a stream where you were launching your book,
you're welcome.
We would be open to do it.
Let me. That might be doable. Let me get back to you, Chris. I'll get back to you this evening about that. Yeah, let me get back to you about that. But that's a cool idea. I'll give you a yes or no this evening. The only reason that I would hesitate is because again, I'll have to be going into work at some point during that time, and I want to make sure that I'm able to kind of wrap up and then get to work because I'll be at work.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Soul just said, meanwhile, Sim is already sketching the cover for the next 20 comics.
Nice.
Yeah,
dude. I may be sharing 5 covers. They're all part of the Nightverse. It's an anthology series, so they each have their title, their covers.
And Sim, are you most involved with doing comic books, or is it kind of a bunch of different things? Concept art.
I do concept art, storyboard. I'm a 3D modeler. I'm a 3D animator and 2D animator.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
impressive.
And I'm going to be starting 3D printing soon. I bought myself a 3D resin printer.
What if you could do anything? What would it be? Again, if everyone was bothering you for commissions, what would the thing you'd want to do be? What would you want to do the most of?
Commissions?
I mean, or rather, in what sort of genres or in what kind of thing? You're 3D printing. Do you want to print a bunch of miniatures for games or D&D stuff, or what?
I want to print a whole bunch of miniatures and but inspired from my IPs. I have a Tales from the Nightverse. That's a big universe. I'd like to have a board game a bit inspired from 40K.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, I want a board game with the minis and stuff, and I want to start doing that slowly, gradually with my campaign. So I'm a comic guy. So I want to do comics most of my life. I'm like the Jack Kirby type of guy. I want to do comics. I want to be movies. I studied movies. I have a bachelor in movie for 3D animation and design and stuff like that. But I realized that I want to do comics even more than I did before. You know what I mean? I came out of there with my diploma and I'm like, I don't want to work in there. I want to do comics.
Well, again, especially if you're self-publishing, you have more freedom if you're self-publishing, especially. It's yes, if you have an audience, your audience will have its demands. So so freedom is sort of a tricky thing to have, but it seems like nowadays you can have more freedom than ever before, as long as what you're doing is competently done.
I have no specific genre because I'm influenced by all type. I grew up reading heavy metal magazine, American comic books, manga, and French comics. So I have no specific genre. I like drawing pirates. I like drawing, all type of stuff. But I would turn around, if you'd say what I turn around mainly when I create would be sci-fi and supernatural. Like my main two first comics I ever wrote was the Wolf Dragon, like technically the last dragon born in human form, raised by an immortal knight, and the second one was
cool.
Tales from an Adverse, which is which is like heavy metal to the max. It's a bit of, if you know Lobo or if you know any anime, Cowboy Bebop or stuff like that. I like that type of space mercenary type of thing.
Well, because there's like a little bit of a gothic sort of vibe, right?
Yeah.
As well, not just the.
Yeah,
I mean, in this on the same way of like Warhammer 40K, it's like it's there's sort of weird technology stuff. So there's like a sci-fi sort of flavor, but
the tech
there's
is a bit
still
gritty. Yeah, I like it a lot. Like I'm a big fan of the heavy metal animated movies. Because of that, I love the aesthetic of it.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
That was a very specific moment in time, like kind of those like very adult, gothic-y sort of animated movies.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's just sad that technically the West, we never got over the stigma that comics and animation is for kids. I can't wait for us to break that stigma.
Mr.
Well, it kind of comes and goes. There's things that sort of break through, but I mean, we probably have Disney to thank for the idea that like, oh, cartoons are for kids.
I think that's it.
Disney and Warner Brothers, sort of. But Warner Brothers was when the Warner Bros. Cartoons were not super duper. Like I would say the humor in Warner Bros. Cartoons was more adult, at least the original ones.
Yep.
But Mr.
Definitely Disney.
It was more dark humor.
Mr. DeBruin saying your art style reminds me of the 60s, 70s of Disney animation in a good way, as well as more classic cartoony Euro comics.
That's what I was saying. Yep.
It's so
I'm sure you would.
Eugene Park.
Mike knows who Louisiel is, and that's the one that I said that he reminded me of.
Yeah, that is Eugene Park.
Mm-hmm.
And then Soul saying to Sim, you won't believe this, but Dunkelziffer is bothering me right now that he enjoyed the digital Blood Hunt and would like to have a physical copy if still available. Hell nah.
There's still some available. There's some available on the campaign, or reach out to me. We can make it happen.
Oh no, Pale Rider's back.
Yep, heavy metal.
So speaking of heavy metal, he did a rough up. No, yeah, so, Pale Rider. But no,
that's what I'm saying. It needs to be a mug. So when you're done, send it to me.
No, Pale Rider. I wanted to tell you something because now I had to listen. I was listening. Was it yesterday to Vinny talk? He talked about his Shadow the Kraken, and now we're talking about Manila. All this piratey talk, and I had an idea, and it was I'll have to tell Pale Rider later. It was about what did I call it? Bloody Sugar, the she devil of the seven seas, or something like that.
Oh wow. I don't know what you're talking about, and I'm not sure I want to know after.
Yeah, you know, keep it there. But yeah, Sim, let me show you what I got here.
Oh, you got the Demon by Kirby. Oh,
oh, nice.
Oh yeah,
that's Witch Boy.
That's definitely the type of thing I want.
Yeah, I was like, oh, Sim would be all about that.
Yeah,
it was the only copy I found.
That's like my favorite Kirby creation.
So I made sure to grab that because I was like, oh yeah, I can make Sim jealous.
And you know what? The reason why I like it so much, it's linked to one of my favorite myth and legend that I grew up reading. I love the Arthurian legends, and the entire demon is based on the guy that betrayed King Arthur in Camelot to what's her name, Le Fay, Morgan Le Fay. So he got cursed for to share his body with the demon. Because of that, and that just that premise for me is kind of like, okay, we're good. That's one of my top favorite. And then you have
is he sort of trying to make up for the sin of betraying Arthur? Is that what the kind of the premise is? Okay.
The curse is he has to roam the world. He's technically immortal as long as he's attached to the demon Atragon. He's immortal, so he roams the planet being a type of supernatural detective.
Okay.
And he can invoke Etrigan and transform into the demon.
Oh boy!
And his name is Jason Blood, And it's one of the stories that I really, 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 really liked. And even Jack Kirby said that it was very dear to him. And you know, when you look at the Fort world, that's obviously North mythology and stuff like that infused in it. And that's the second one I love the most. And Thor.
But yeah, I got a whole bunch. I spent over $100. Yeah. At the
Wow.
flea market. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
only one demon in there?
Yeah. Well, that's the only one they had. I went through, good gosh, I went through probably at least 10, 20 long boxes looking at stuff. And that was the only one I found. But I did find a comic that the character on here makes me think of Dave. Makes me think of Bristolian Dave. I'm going to save that for when I go through these on a stream.
As long as it's not the Blob, we're good.
No, it's not Sublime. Well, let me rephrase it. It reminds me of an older Dave. There we go. A little bit older Dave. But yeah, I mean, I got so much shit in here. I'm excited about. I'm gonna wait and save that for another stream. Let's see. Let me check the chat real quick. Okay. Pale Rider says he's already got a pick in his head, standing with one leg up on a barrel, shoving an attacker in the garden. Oh Lord. Yeah, I was sitting there in my head, and I ended up coming with like a little story, like when I was listening to Vinny talk about Shadow the Kraken and everything for the whole thing in my head for this character. But yeah, do go sign up for Manila though. I mean, a 20% discount. That's a nice little bit of savings just for signing up.
Oh, here's I'll show. This is a little off brand, but I'll show you the X Crawl trailer that we put together.
Oh, okay.
I think you'll appreciate the art here as well. Let's see.
Yeah, I just found an example of that Loisel thing. Can you share my screen just for a quick second?
Yeah.
This is the one we're talking about, because even Mike agrees with me that it reminds me a bit of that style. This is the Peter Pan book that we were talking about.
Oh, I see what you mean. I mean, I would say that the grotesqueness is certainly similar, but I would say that what we're going for is a little more cartoony. Agreed. Okay, here's the X Crawl trailer. This is more of a motion comic. You know, we had essentially a fellow named Spencer Dina who he does motion comics for Marvel and for DC. I think DC specifically now. So like, moving the elements around. So it's like that kind of hybrid comic animation thing.
And by the way, Soul's like, Sim, damn it. Okay, he goes, I might have to talk to you later on that hashtag add-on. Dude, you just have to reach out. I can create a secret tier just to have one of those copies added on to your tier that you already backtail some adverts, buddy. I won't charge you more shipping. Just reach out. I'll prep one.
Now, before I go and play this, do you know how much you're going to be asking for Manila?
If you just want the digital download, $10, $25 for issue 1. And I mean, I'm sure once we start self-publishing, then individual issues will be more reasonable. But specifically for our crowdfunder, we're going $25 for issue 1.
How many pages is it going to be?
24.
Okay.
And I would say most of our issues are going to be 24, and I think the last 2 are probably going to be 32.
And what you thinking about for starting price on your campaign for a physical copy?
You said
physical copy, 25.
25, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So bring this up.
I'm not saying the Mary I aren't the best.
It sounds like you're saying they're going down.
Listen to me. What I'm saying is the people love a redemption story.
And Essa Jenkins and the Agronauts are that story. Agreed.
Welcome to the Emperor's Cup 150, the promised award for a devastating season for most X-Ball fans.
Think Extreme Dungeon Crawl.
Ready to rock?
Ready.
Hit it.
Slammer.
Dibs.
See, Tumpa just joined us and says he likes it. This is great. So you're in the green, buddy. That means that probably means that you're gonna have one of the biggest promoters on Twitter to promote your goddamn book.
Yeah,
That's
Tompa's a big promoter of books.
And I'd like to remind people, in case you guys missed it, I found out last night right before going to bed, but it was Tompa's birthday yesterday, so wish him happy birthday.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that X Crawl's pretty neat. Like, I don't think I've seen anyone do a D&D, but as a sports league style thing too much.
Yeah, I was very lucky. A friend of mine invited me to essentially like a weekend of role play gaming, and I think I ran a Firefly themed one off that weekend. It was a whole bunch of people, all geeky, all very creative, and it was just like people playing role playing games, different ones, all for 3 solid days, and the kind of guest celebrity GM was a guy named Brendan LaSalle, and Brendan LaSalle created the X Crawl game, and it's kind of a mishmash of, because he was playing in the 80s and early 90s. It was what if D&D meets pro wrestling sort of thing, and I think they're presently releasing a new edition of X Crawl, and Goodman Games is the publisher. It's really fun. It's really fun and funny, but also very dark and messed up, like kind of dystopian. I would say, in terms of the way I wanted to kind of play the world of it, because again, Brendan and I teamed up and collaborated and wrote a feature script for it. What I was going for in terms of the feel, it wasn't even necessarily like D&D. I was like, this is like RoboCop in terms of weird, grotesque advertisements for crap that's crappy and awful violence on television, sort of like essentially what the kind of like pearl clutching Christian mothers were afraid we were going to turn into because of stuff in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
What if we got even worse than they were afraid we'd get? And this is the world. And there was magic and there was monsters, and we had arenas where people were, killing each other and killing monsters and traps and stuff like that, with, full blown corporate sponsorships for everything that happens.
Quick question for you, Paul. Tommy's asking, are you on Twitter?
I am on Twitter, but I'm not really active. I sort of stepped away from Twitter when I realized how not good it was getting. But I'm at Paul_Suda on Twitter, but I'm not really active on Twitter. Again, especially considering, there's people I personally know who've been canceled because of old tweets. Like people who are series regulars on television who are doing great, and then snap and they're gone.
But that's any social media.
Oh yeah. But Twitter seems to be the worst. I remembered. And this is back in like 2017. I was like, I never feel better after going on Twitter ever. So maybe not so much with Twitter. Facebook, it's toss up. Instagram, toss up. Twitter, I was like, there's nothing good here.
The only thing I would tell you is Twitter, you don't use it to go like, see the good of life or enjoy life. You go there to promote stuff, because it's a very good platform to promote, because Facebook hides your stuff. You actually have to pay when you have an account there for people, even your friends, to see your stuff. So that's why people still like to go on Twitter and use that one to promote a bit more, like Instagram.
Sure.
That's why I would say. But obviously, if you start paying attention and caring, and let those troll get to you, it can get very, very, very discouraging.
Fair enough. No, it's a tricky time right now.
Yep. Oh, we got Mo Biggs with us. Hey, Mo. Let's see. Tompa says he sees cool animation, good-looking Manila book, and Indiegogo, and now TTRPG talk. Am I in heaven? So, did you ever think of doing X-Crawl as a book?
That could be very interesting.
I mean, we could do an X-Crawl comic. That would be very doable. I would say but before I kind of turn around and attempt such a thing, I want to get Manila at least volume 1, but probably into volume 2 and volume 3. I want to kind of get Manila cranking.
Mm-hmm.
But the other thing also is like the X-Crawl project was a collaboration with another director partner of mine, and I do want, if it's going to become a feature or become a television show, even animated, whatever that is, I want time, for that to either happen or not happen before we then regroup. That's what I would say.
Yeah, it makes sense.
So it's like because X-Curl, I have more partners, I would have to convince them of such things.
Yeah.
With Manila, because I only have one artistic partner, it's only one person I have to convince to do one thing or another thing.
Mm-hmm. We have Mo Biggs, by the way, that just joined in. What's up, Mo?
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, that makes sense. That would be pretty cool if you could get it to be like sort of like an animated thing. It'd be kind of like an animated thing on like Netflix or something. X-Crawl.
I mean, or Adult Swim. I mean, Adult Swim would be fine. That'd be like an obvious one in terms, because I mean, Rick and Morty has a very violent, sort of very adult sort of feel to it. It is very funny too. I mean, but the kind of very fast, going from nothing to infinite chaos sort of vibe, that's pretty on brand for X-Crawl. I mean, you know what's funny? I'll connect you. I'll connect you, Chris, to Brendan LaSalle. I'm sure, because I'll poke him, because I'm sure I don't know if the new edition of X-Crawl has been released yet, but I think they're pretty close, because he talked to me about finishing the manuscript, which was insanely, a lot of words, a lot of work to do. But he's excited about the new rule system. I mean, but I think the thing for him that was a total slog was like the kind of nitty gritty crap. Like, okay, what damage do the spells do? That kind of stuff. Because it is, again, even though it's not, even though they kind of have diverged from the kind of original like D&D D20. I think it's more Dungeon Crawl Classics. It's still D20 based, but it's more streamlined. So the system isn't exactly the same as I don't know what edition of D&D it was, but even though they have diverged, it's still a very similar idea. You get experience, you have levels, it's D20 based. There's spells, there's spell slots, and just sort of having all of the stats for the monsters and what all the spells did, and having that all be scaled properly. That was, I'm sure, a terrible slog. I have no envy for people who have to do that stuff. It's like, look, I like playing these games. I have no desire to do the testing it would require to be like, no, like turn this knob down. This spell's too powerful. Turn this knob up. Like all that stuff. Exhausting. Totally exhausting.
Yeah, I would really like to see this Manila, like just the style. It really does look like they said, early Disney stuff. I think that would really.
It looks like those those children Franco-Belgium comics and those early Disney animated. Yeah.
I'll send you guys the draft that I have. I'll show you the whole thing. I'll send you the draft.
I think that would be really cool to see that as like an early Disney kind of animated film or something. That'd be pretty cool.
And for that gladiator thing, obviously get in touch with us. Should probably come in here. The guys in the chat seems to be very excited about that idea.
yeah, we actually.
Because I mean, it's a war. It's it's the North American Empire, so it's this is the most dense way I could describe it. It's like, what if you would have what if D&D was real and it was a gladiatorial death sport on television? And instead of in America, it was the North American Empire, and the emperor is Ronald Reagan. Like, that's the concept. It's like, what is this?
It's wild. Yeah, I think that's a really cool idea. And a lot of folks in our chat are big TTRPG people, so they would really enjoy that.
Go to Goodman Games. Play X-Crawl. It's really fun. And
Yeah,
again, I'll
so
connect you guys with Brendan LaSalle. I definitely
so
will do that.
Sol already shared the link in
Yeah,
the chat right there. Yeah,
Soul's always on point. He always gets right on
Brilliant.
it.
Yeah. They're good folks over there. They treat Brendan really well. So he's happy with his gig over there. That's a big deal. Because I don't know how much work you guys have done with role playing game stuff. It's like it's a dice roll, because you could be doing something and then it could just disappear, or the company can fold up. Not everybody who's creative is a good business person, and actually most people who are creative aren't good business people. And this is where it is.
I've worked on more projects that never saw the light of day, and I cannot show nothing because legal contracts and stuff like that. But there never came out. There was an animated series called The Hit. It was technically like a spaceship. The entire premise was like a bunch of skit of superheroes. Like The Hit was like a space station where all superheroes can meet. There's like a neutral zone, like a big bar. There was that stuff, and there was a video game. There was a movie. I worked on a remake of what's the name of it? Logan's Run. That never got made. Yeah, that one was, and that and Captain Flam. Which Captain Future, I think the U.S. called it. It was a sci-fi anime. The guy, it was a sci-fi a space captain. He had a bit of like a bit like Iron Man, the suit that he had, and he had a floating brain called Simon and a big robot next to him. I don't know if that rings a bell.
What? No, I mean I'm not that versed in the comics space.
Mm-hmm.
It was an early. It's actually a novel that got adapted as a cartoon in the 70s, 80s. And yeah. For you, it was called Captain Future. The actual novel also was called Captain Future, and then they called him Captain Flam or something. But here it is. Hold on.
Tompa says Adam Lawson is a good person to network when thinking about comics / TTRPG mix.
Can you share my screen for a sec?
Yes, Tim.
There you go. That's what it was.
Oh, okay, cool.
Then you had that robot there, and the one that's flying there, it's like a little brain in there. That was the robot, Craig.
That's very anime aesthetic.
Then he had his entire crew, and this was the flying robot with the brain called Simon, and that was their ship, which you see in the scrapyard in Telson Adverse.
Oh.
There you go. You see it better here, Simon, the brain bot.
This ship reminds me of the Starjammers ship from X-Men.
Yep. That was a bit of the inspiration, but that's old as hell.
Let's see. Tompa says Lawson got good number of new eyes through quick TikTok animation videos for the 8th. Potential there for promo side.
Nice.
Yeah, I've seen a few people do the TikTok. I think Carla's doing TikTok. Mike Murphy and them are doing TikTok, and they're saying that they're getting some attention on their books through it. I don't know. I have not seen anything that appeals to me about TikTok.
Me neither.
I've tried to. I've had friends show me their TikToks. They're like, yeah, look at that. Yeah, and they're showing me these things. And I'm like, oh man, I can't watch this stuff.
Means you're old now.
Yeah, I'm getting old, I guess.
Damn it! You're not even 30 something yet.
I'm 33. I'm getting to be an old man.
Yeah, when things that kids are doing perplex you, you're old now.
Apparently,
I don't think that's how it works. You have to make the difference, because there is the part where you're like, am I getting too old, or they're just being stupid? I remember when I was in my 20s, we did stupid shit that now we think going, I should not have done that. I should have listened to my uncle.
I know that. Yeah, I should never have worn that red dress.
You should never. But no, you should have wore it, but probably not bring it up on our live stream. I'm just saying,
No, it's just one of those things. Like it's done, and now people break your balls. But like that means they like you.
Yep.
People are gonna never leave you alone. But like, at least you're not lonely.
It's a way of showing love.
Eyes are eyes. That's right, Tom. But yeah.
I think I think I heard Tucker Max say this. This is super wise. Was the way that men show each other affection is we say horrible things to each other all the time that we don't really mean, and the way that women show affection is they say lots of really nice things to each other all the time.
Overly nice stuff, yeah.
Yeah, that's literally
Exactly, yeah. Well, us, we like to take jabs at each other. If we like each other, we'll take jab. Yeah. And it's one of the things I was addressing. Like I had a big conversation because I have I'm raising 2 boys and 2 girls. So, we had that conversation at the point where it's like, why don't we get punished the same? Why don't we there's a different way of reacting to people. And, not everybody reacts the same to different, boys has to be a bit more like right now. And it has to leave a memory in behind that he does not want to fuck with. Well, a girl has to be more of here's a very long punishment so you can think and reflect upon it. Type of example.
Well, I think it's also temperamental. I mean, again, everyone, whether you're a boy or a girl, that some people are, whether it's rewards or punishment, people respond differently based on their temperament. And like, if you're a very agreeable person, then someone just being disapproving of you or disappointing someone might be all you need to be afraid of to behave yourself. Whereas if you're disagreeable, it's like you don't care. Oh no, you don't like me. Like, just depends on what your temperament is.
Let's see. Mr. De Bruyne says to Sam, 20s, please. That started at 5 for most of us. The impact just became worse after 20. And then Mo says, like when Chris just said he wished he never wore the red dress. We know he didn't really mean it, so we didn't take it personally. Gosh dang it, Mo. You're as bad as Pale Rider.
And Chris, I'd give you it's we've been on for like an hour and a half. It's 1:30 p.m.
Oh, alrighty. Yeah, I guess we should start to wrap it up. I'm sure Paul has things he needs to do today.
I actually have a little self-tape audition I have to do. So this is great timing. I need to go do that, which is real fun, but gotta do it.
Alrighty, so we'll
thank you so much for inviting me, fellas. This is great. I'm really glad to have had a conversation with you. And again, I'll connect you with Brendan LaSalle. I think learn a bit about X-Crawl, but ask him how it began, and he'll just tell you the whole thing. And he's a good storyteller and a very funny, interesting fellow, and such a kind person. So I think giving him some love would be really cool. And Sim, keep in touch with Brennan, because I mean, again, with Goodman Games, they treat their people well, and they always need artists. So that'd be a good relationship as well to have.
I'd be interested. I love doing concept art. It's my favorite part of everything. I love creating characters.
Sweet. That would be cool to do. And yeah, and if you have any like free time in your schedule tomorrow evening, yeah, I wouldn't mind doing like a little launch stream or something like that for an hour or two for you. If you do have a time? I know you said you had to.
It is tempting. It is tempting. Again, let me get back to you tonight. If I were to do it, it would be like start at 5, and I have to be like running out of there by 6.
All right,
that's how it would go. But again, I'll get back to you tonight with a definitive for sure. Right.
Yeah, no worries.
And it was nice meeting you, dude.
Yeah,
awesome. And a pleasure, both of you guys as well. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And just before we close, I'm gonna start going like, please share this channel, because there's another thing here. At 500, you get a chance of winning original art by yours truly, and 1,000, well, you know what happens.
Yeah,
he goes to Louisiana and joins the Red Dress Man.
I need to set up the 250 subscriber special stream too. I didn't do that yet. We actually got some more subscribers. We're up to 262 now. So thanks to all the recent subs. And I do appreciate it.
I'd like to highlight that, Soul mentioned me working on multiple covers. This is why. Here's the cover from Planet 69 that's going to be in Tales from the Adverse 2, an homage to Blade Runner. You have a Metal Valkyrie here. Also Tales from the Adverse 2. And you have Murder Doll. And if that wasn't enough, you have the Dino Mercs. That's coming to Tales from the Adverse 2. And I'm working on the DEF CON cover. So yeah, I'm working on a lot of cover, but it's all related to Tellson and Adverse. I'm not starting 25,000 IPs.
Tompa said that he has signed up to Manila mailing list. Looks promising. Excited to see more art.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Alrighty. So, Sim, did you say everything you need to say?
Yeah. Don't forget to, like, share, and sub this channel. And don't forget Doodle and Chill on Saturday, Sunday. We got the Saturday morning cartoon one. And yeah, go check out Tellson and Adverse. And Soul, if you guys want a copy of Blood Hunt, reach out to me. I'll create a secret tier for you guys.
Alrighty. Mr. Paul, any final words?
Thanks for your attention, folks. And we're launching Manila tomorrow. Can't wait to show you what we got.
All right. And as for me, thanks everybody in the chat for tuning in. As always, you guys make these streams what they are. And we might see you tomorrow for the large stream, maybe if Paul has the time. And maybe I'll do a special Wednesday stream just to show off these books, these fancy books I got. And see if you all agree with me if this guy looks like an older Bristolian Dave. So see you all later. Bye.
Later.